$38.5 million. That's what someone just paid for a single car at the Mecum-Kissimmee auction. Not a fleet of cars, not a dealership. One Ferrari. And the craziest part? The collector car world is shocked it sold for so little. This wasn't just any Ferrari. This was a 250 GTO, the only factory white example ever built, with a racing history that reads like a who's who of motorsport legends. But something happened at that auction that has never happened before with a GTO. Let me explain. If you love hearing about the rarest, most valuable machines ever built, and you want to understand why some cars are worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes, hit that subscribe button right now. Because we're about to break down one of the most significant car sales in history. Let's get into it. So here's what happened. January 17th, 2026, Mecum's Kissimmee auction. The biggest collector car auction in America. Thousands of cars rolling across the block over 2 weeks. Muscle cars, hot rods, Porsches, you name it. But there's one car that everyone's waiting for. One lot number that has the entire room holding its breath. Chassis 3729 GT, a 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO, the only factory white example ever built. Now before we go any further, you need to understand what a 250 GTO actually is, because calling it just a Ferrari is like calling the Mona Lisa just a painting. This isn't hyperbole. This is the most valuable production car ever made. Period. Ferrari built exactly 36 standard GTOs between 1962 and 1964, plus 3 4-liter variants. That's 39 total. Ever. In the entire history of the company. You've got a better chance of getting struck by lightning twice than owning one of these things. But it's not just about rarity. Plenty of cars are rare. What makes the GTO special is that it's the perfect storm of everything that matters in the collector car world. Racing pedigree? Check. It dominated the FIA GT World Championship from 1962 to 1964. We're talking 1, 2, 3 finishes at Le Mans, wins at the Tour de France Automobile, victories at the Targa Florio, over 30 major wins in just 3 years. Design? Absolute perfection. Sergio Scaglietti shaped the body. Giotto Bizzarini engineered the chassis. This thing is a rolling sculpture that just happens to be one of the most successful racing cars ever built. Performance? In 1962, this car was making 300 horsepower from a 3-liter V12. That might not sound like much today, when your neighbor's Hellcat is pushing 700. But remember, this thing weighed about 2,300 pounds. That's a power-to-weight ratio that would embarrass most modern sports cars. And it did it with 6 Weber carburetors, a 5-speed manual, and absolutely zero electronic aids. No traction control, no ABS, no stability control. Just you, the car, and your ability to not wrap it around a tree. So when one of these comes up for sale, the world pays attention. But here's where it gets interesting. This particular GTO, chassis 3729 GT, was estimated to sell for $50 to $70 million. That's what the experts thought it would bring. That's what the pre-sale buzz suggested. And when the hammer finally dropped at $35 million, which became $38.5 million with the buyer's premium, you could feel the shock in the room. Why? Because in 2018, a different 250 GTO sold at RM Sotheby's Monterey for $48.4 million. That's nearly $10 million more. For a car that, on paper, isn't as special as this one. So what happened? Did the market crash? Is the collector car bubble finally bursting? Are billionaires suddenly broke? Not even close. To understand what really happened here, you need to understand the story of this specific car. Because every GTO has a story, but this one's different. Let's start with the color. Bianco Speciale, special white. This is the only 250 GTO that Ferrari ever delivered in white from the factory. Every other one, Rosso Corsa red or occasionally blue for American racing teams. But this one rolled out of Maranello in July 1962 wearing white paint, and that alone makes it a unicorn among unicorns. It was also built as a right-hand drive car, which tells you it was destined for the UK market, and that's exactly where it went. The first owner was John Coombs, a British racing driver and team owner, who took delivery through Maranello concessionaires. Now, here's where the racing pedigree comes in. Because this car wasn't bought to sit in a garage. It was bought to win races. And the list of drivers who got behind the wheel reads like a Motorsport Hall of Fame. Graham Hill. Yes, that Graham Hill. Two-time Formula One world champion. The only man to ever win the Triple Crown of Motorsport, the F1 Championship, the Indy 500, and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. He drove this car at the 1962 RAC Tourist Trophy at Goodwood and finished second overall. Mike Parkes, Ferrari factory driver, one of the most underrated talents of the era. Roy Salvadori, another British racing legend who piloted this GTO to a second-place finish at the Pecco Trophy at Brands Hatch in August 1962. Richie Ginther, American racing hero who drove for Ferrari's factory team. Jack Sears, British touring car champion who not only drove this car in period, but later owned it for 29 years. This wasn't some rich guy's toy that got trailered to a few club races. This was a proper racing machine that competed at the highest levels of GT racing in the early 1960s. And it has the results to prove it. Second place finishes at major events. Class wins, podiums. This car earned its stripes. But then something happened that, in the collector car world, is considered almost sacrilegious. Sometime in the 1970s, someone painted it red. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's a Ferrari. It's supposed to be red. And you're not wrong. But this car wasn't supposed to be red. It was born white. It was delivered white. It raced white. And when you're talking about a car worth tens of millions of dollars, originality matters. A lot. So when John Shirley bought the car in 1999, he had a decision to make. John Shirley, for those who don't know, is the former president of Microsoft. He worked directly under Bill Gates. He's one of the most respected collectors in the world, with a garage that includes some of the rarest Ferraris ever built. And when he bought this GTO, it was red. But John did his homework. He researched the car's history. He dug through the archives. He confirmed that this car was originally Bianco Speciale, and he made the decision to restore it back to its factory-correct white. That's a big deal. Because in the collector car world, there's original, and then there's restored to original. And while restored to original is better than being the wrong color, it's not the same as never having been changed in the first place. For 27 years, John Shirley owned this car. He showed it at Pebble Beach, multiple times. 2001, 2011, 2017. He took it to the Cavallino Classic in 2007, 2008, 2009, and 2017. He entered it in historic racing events at Laguna Seca and Monterey. He drove it. He enjoyed it. He shared it with the world. But he also kept it unrestored in the mechanical sense. This isn't a car that's been torn down to the last nut and bolt and rebuilt to concours perfection. This is a car that's been maintained, preserved, and kept in running condition. And in the world of GTOs, that's actually a good thing. Because over-restoration can kill the soul of a car like this. Now, let's talk about what happened at the auction, because this is where the story gets really interesting. The pre-sale estimate was $50 to $70 million. That's a massive range, but it reflects the uncertainty in the market. GTOs rarely come up for sale. When they do, it's usually a private transaction. Auction sales are uncommon. Public auction sales are even rarer. So there's not a lot of recent data to work with. The last major public sale was that $48.4 million car in 2018. Before that, a GTO sold privately for a reported $70 million in 2018. There are rumors of even higher private sales, but those numbers are never confirmed. So, when this car was announced for Mecum Kissimmee, the expectations were sky high. This is Mecum's biggest sale of the year. It's broadcast live on TV. It's a spectacle. And a 250 GTO is the ultimate spectacle car. But when the bidding started, something felt off. The room was quieter than expected. The bids were coming in slower. And when the hammer finally dropped at $35 million, which became $38.5 million with the 10% buyer's premium, there was a collective gasp. Not because $38.5 million isn't a staggering amount of money. It is. It's more than most people will see in their entire lives. But because, in the context of 250 GTOs, it felt low. So what happened? Here's the truth. And this is what the headlines won't tell you. This sale price doesn't mean the market is crashing. It doesn't mean GTOs are suddenly worth less. What it means is that this specific car, at this specific auction, at this specific moment in time, didn't hit the reserve that the seller wanted. Let me explain. In the collector car world, there's what a car is worth, and then there's what someone will pay for it on a given day. Those two numbers aren't always the same. The $48.4 million car that sold in 2018, that was at R.M. Sotheby's Monterey. That's the Super Bowl of collector car auctions. It's during Monterey Car Week, when every billionaire collector in the world is in town. The energy is different. The buyers are different. The competition is different. Mecum Kissimmee is an incredible auction. It's the biggest in terms of volume. But it's not Monterey. The crowd is different. The vibe is different. And when you're selling a $50 million car, the venue matters. There's also the issue of the repaint. Yes, John Shirley restored it back to the correct color. But it's not the original paint. And for some collectors, that matters. A lot. There are people who will pay a premium for a car that's never been repainted, even if the current paint is faded and cracked. Originality is king. Then, there's the engine. The original engine from this car was removed in 1965 and installed in a Cooper Formula 1 car. The car now has a different Ferrari V12, which has been certified by Ferrari Classiche as correct for the model. But it's not the original engine that was in the car when Graham Hill drove it at Goodwood. And again, for some collectors, that's a deal breaker. But here's what's important to understand. None of this means the car isn't worth $50 million or more. It just means that on January 17th, 2026, at Mecum Kissimmee, the right buyer wasn't in the room. Or the right buyer was in the room but didn't want to pay that price at that moment. Because here's the thing about cars at this level. They're not commodities. They're not stocks. You can't just look up the value on a website and know what it's worth. Every sale is unique. Every buyer is unique. Every circumstance is unique. If this car had been offered at R.M. Sotheby's Monterey during Car Week, with 6 months of marketing and a global campaign targeting every GTO owner and every billionaire collector, would it have sold for more? Probably. Would it have hit $50 million? Maybe. Would it have broken the record? Possibly. But that's not what happened. What happened is that it sold at Mecum Kissimmee for $38.5 million, and whoever bought it got one hell of a deal. Because let's be clear about something. There are 39 Ferrari 250 GTOs in the world. That's it. And they almost never change hands. Most of them are owned by people who will never sell. They're in collections that span generations. They're family heirlooms. They're trophies that represent the pinnacle of automotive achievement. So when one does come up for sale, even if it's not perfect, even if it's been repainted, even if it doesn't have the original engine, it's still a 250 GTO. And that means something. It means you own a piece of history. You own a car that dominated Le Mans. You own a car that was driven by Graham Hill. You own a car that represents the absolute peak of front-engine GT racing. You own a car that will never ever depreciate. Because here's the reality. In 10 years, this car will be worth more than $38.5 million. In 20 years, it'll be worth even more. In 50 years, when there are even fewer of these cars left in existence, when the people who remember seeing them race are gone, when they become even more mythical than they already are, this car will be priceless. That's what you're really buying when you buy a 250 GTO. You're not buying a car. You're buying immortality. And that's why, even at $38.5 million, even with the repaint and the replacement engine, and the fact that it sold for less than expected, this is still one of the most significant car sales in history. Because it's a 250 GTO, and there's nothing else like it. Now, let's put this in perspective. $38.5 million is more than the GDP of some small countries. It's more than the cost of a Boeing 737. It's more than most people will earn in 500 lifetimes. For that money, you could buy a fleet of Bugatti Chirons. You could buy every single limited edition hypercar released in the last 5 years. You could buy a mansion in Beverly Hills and still have change left over. But you can't buy another 250 GTO. Because they're not for sale. And when they are, they sell for $38.5 million. That's the market. That's the reality. And that's what makes this car so special. So what does this sale really mean? It means that even in a world where the stock market is volatile, where interest rates are high, where economic uncertainty is everywhere, people will still pay $38.5 million for a piece of automotive history. It means that the collector car market, especially at the very top, is still strong. It means that the right car with the right story will always find a buyer. But it also means that not every sale is going to break records. Not every auction is going to be a home run. Sometimes a $50 million car sells for $38.5 million. And that's okay, because the car is still worth what it's worth. The market will correct itself, and the next time a GTO comes up for sale, we'll see what happens. But make no mistake, whoever bought this car at Mecum Kissimmee got a deal. They got the only factory white 250 GTO ever built. They got a car with a racing history that includes Graham Hill and Roy Salvadori. They got a car that's been shown at Pebble Beach and Cavallino. They got a car that's been owned by one of the most respected collectors in the world. And they got it for $10 million, less than the last GTO that sold at public auction. That's not a market crash. That's an opportunity. And someone took it. So the next time you hear about a car selling for tens of millions of dollars, remember this. It's not just about the money. It's about the history. It's about the rarity. It's about the story. And in the case of the Ferrari 250 GTO, it's about owning a piece of automotive perfection that will never be replicated. Because they're not making any more of these. And they never will. If you want to see more deep dives into the world's most expensive and significant car sales, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this breakdown, and drop a comment below. What do you think? Is $38.5 million a bargain for a 250 GTO? Or is the market finally coming back to reality? I want to hear your thoughts. And if you want to see what other insane machines have crossed the auction block, check out this video right here where we break down the 10 most expensive cars ever sold at Barrett-Jackson. Trust me, You won't believe what some of these went for. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.